know it seems like we've been focused only on Trump and Ukraine with breaking stories such as John Bolton's leaked manuscript, Mike Pompeo's meltdown, and this.
Things are getting serious in the impeachment trial. Senator Romney is drinking chocolate milk. He apparently brought his own bottle.
That is a sin, Mitt. Sir, you just lost yourself a planet. But if you're tired of all the sad, scary impeachment news, now there's another story we can be sadder and scareder about.
Hundreds of U.S. citizens evacuated from China as the coronavirus outbreak continues to spread.
5 people in the U.S. have been diagnosed with the disease.
Make no mistake, this coronavirus is worrisome. But now is not the time for us to panic. Now is the time to calmly watch my show and the valuable commercials paid for by our sponsors. Sears. There's still a few left. Aw, Sears. While the transmission of the virus has been limited in America, it's rapidly spreading in China, with thousands of people infected and millions more being quarantined. The only way China could be locking down cities any harder would be if the coronavirus were protesting for Hong Kong's independence. The people directly impacted are the ones we should care about at this moment, but since America is basically the drunk single sister at the wedding who has to make everything about herself, fine, let's make it about us. While the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are currently monitoring over 100 people in the U.S. for the coronavirus, they still believe the threat to the public remains low. In fact, they say the only thing less threatening is Timothée Chalamet's whisper of a mustache. He's the only 24-year-old who grew a mustache to look 16. The good news is the CDC is working hard to contain and study the coronavirus. The bad news is that same CDC has lost a dangerous amount of its funding.
Now the CDC will reportedly scale back work in dozens of foreign countries amid funding worries. And that has experts worried. They say it's not a matter of if there will be another viral outbreak, it's a matter of when.
Of course it's a matter of when and not if. The only thing scarier than hearing the CDC is scaling back is hearing they got a part-time job at Chopped and they just horked all over the croutons. In 2014, the government allocated $5.4 billion to several agencies to help fight Ebola, including $600 million going to the CDC to help foreign countries prevent epidemics. Look, we didn't do it because we're nice. We work with other countries because we don't want to get sick here. I mean, you just don't understand. The U.S. is taking a cruise next week. It cannot get sick right now. As that money ran out, the CDC had to downsize epidemic prevention activities in 39 out of 49 countries. That meant only 10 countries were going to be prioritized for training and detection. The other 39 countries will just get a complimentary bottle of Purell and a CDC-branded dental dam. Despite the obvious benefits to funding an agency that prevents a zombie apocalypse, the Trump administration's 2020 budget proposal actually recommended another 10% cut to the CDC's funding. How does a notorious germaphobe cut the budget of an agency that fights infectious diseases? Just tell Trump the CDC needs the money to keep him from catching whatever necrosis is making Rudy decompose. In fact, the CDC's budget has been cut the last 2 years, and the Trump administration wants to cut another $30 million this year. The cuts have been so egregious that the agency's former director had to find a new way to put it into perspective.
Well, I'm so concerned that the administration proposed a 20% cut in the CDC's budget just earlier this week. That would bring CDC's budget back to nearly 15, 20 years ago when Finding Nemo was released.
Sure, that's one way to refer to 2003. Just like how the birth date of my first child is listed as when Pirates of the Caribbean came out. But we're not just vulnerable because of budget cuts. We're also vulnerable on a local level. Due to the decentralized nature of our health system, there's no way to get every hospital prepared for a pandemic. Hospitals are less like McDonald's, where you know exactly what's on the menu at every location, and more like Ray's Pizza. You might get Famous Ray's or Original Famous Ray's or Ray's Famous Original, or you might get a slice from a nice man named Ray on the subway. Spend the most magical night of your life with him, and then he never calls you back. It's fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. And as with every issue in America, the ones who will be hit hardest are the poor and people of color, who often don't have hospitals in their area or access to health care at all. We really don't have to look that far back to see how unprepared we are for an outbreak. 2 years ago, a particularly bad flu season saw hospitals so overwhelmed that they were treating patients in tents. Tents! And what if they put you in the same tent as the Great British Bake Off? Oh yeah, they'll give you the Tamiflu, but first you have to perfectly execute a Victoria sponge. Look, we don't know if this coronavirus is the next big pandemic, but we do know that another pandemic is inevitable. It's important to understand we have a whole system of doctors, scientists, and various nerds at the CDC who all want to save our lives. I mean, except for Dr. Silly Billy. He's accident prone. Bad things just happen to him. We need to get our shit together and better fund the CDC so that all of us can survive until the partisan civil war that will immediately follow the 2020 election.